Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of Into the Insights. I'm joined today with Brianna from District Cover. It's a pleasure to have Brianna on the show today, all the way from New York. So it's great to have Brianna. It's been a while since we've done the last one, so super excited about this one. And yeah, Brianna, over to you. It'd be great if you could introduce yourselves to the INSEE audience.
Awesome. Greetings. Hello, everyone. Brianna Chia. I am head of operations here at District Cover. Joined District Cover about 3 years ago, and we were a team of three people. We had a vision, a slide deck, and a product that we wanted to sell to small commercial, large commercial clients in cities within the US. So we started scoping out, vendors for our policy admin system. We were lucky enough to find Inslee, and yeah, happy to be here.
Amazing. Thanks for that. And tell us a little bit more about District Cover as a business. It's great that you kind of started off from basics. But what was kind of the
Mhm.
if you had to maybe describe that vision that you had at the start, when that was, and kind of the maybe the step by step process, and just a little bit more about District Cover in general. It'd be great to hear your words on that.
Yeah, certainly. So, myself and our founder actually worked together at a firm prior to this where we were selling an admitted small business insurance product. And the sort of brainchild of District Cover started, the ideas behind it kind of started then, where the carriers that we were working with, we were a program administrator, so we were working within the confines of the carriers, appetite guidelines, and they required that we would decline certain businesses if they were in a certain zip code. So it was sort of a one object, being applied to vast swaths of communities, neighborhoods that you'd all be familiar with. And we were consistently hearing from brokers, this is a perfectly fine establishment. This is a community based, establishment that's been there for 20 years, etc. Or this is, a dentist office. Like, why are you just, declining for a crime score? So that sort of started, the wheels started turning of like, okay, there's something here, but at the time we were on this kind of straight through quote to bind. That was like the product we were selling at the time. So um that kind of got the wheels turning. My founder, Patrick Gerard, he like left that venture and really started to focus on District Cover. It's like, I'm gonna really try to solve, how can we show up as stable capacity within these neighborhoods, um, and not have, and we see it today, you have markets that are kind of in and out of some of these cities. So we're seeing submissions, every day where the current carriers like, oh, we're not going to write retail in Burla Bronx, or we're not going to write, laundry in some other city. And it's sort of like this in and out kind of bouncing around that the local retail agents are having to deal with. So we want to come in and not just have a solution for, hey, we'll write it this year. We want to come in and like really be there for the customers in these areas of the city. And to do that, we basically started calling cities all over in the US asking for their crime data to try to
Wow.
really get the story on like what is this like crime data that the larger incumbent carriers are using to just blanket not write business in these areas, or they're pricing it too high, or they're stripping down the coverage that they're providing. So we got a ton of crime data, we cleaned it up, we created basically a pricing model to predict how that those businesses actually perform from a loss perspective. And we found that within a zip code, a lot of crime happens in small pockets of the zip code. and we will still write in an entire zip code, but there might be different terms and conditions based on like the crime relatively within that very specific. We went down to like a 250-meter grid within zip code. So you picture like a city block. So that's one sort of proprietary model. We have others. We have a fire model. We're working on a GL model, but we're trying to get just really granular on like the actual like risks that we're underwriting versus kind of like, oh, you're in this zip code. No.
And I guess it's interesting because where maybe some of the bigger players they'll issue those declines, for example, um, a lot of people would maybe see that as okay, that's where the buck ends, you know. But I guess yourself and Patrick, especially, have seen that as really as an opportunity. If something's getting declined, how can people such as yourselves pick up that kind of segment or area of business, right?
Yeah, we have, in some regards, a more traditional approach when it comes to an MGA and really like underwriting the risks. So we have a team of underwriters. We are relying on Inslee for really the tech and the developers. And I work closely with the team. We meet weekly and we organize all the new features and et cetera. But on the more traditional side, we actually have underwriters on the team that are hearing the story, talking to brokers. We're offering the product on a non-admitted basis, so we have some flexibility in terms of like terms and conditions, obviously within guidelines, and then pricing, of course. So we're trying to meet the market so that we can really show up for the customer.
Amazing. And you mentioned brokers there. Is that your kind of primary avenue for distribution? And if that is the case, then what's your kind of relationship with them like since the product went live? What's that kind of process been like with the brokers?
So fortunately, we had some really strong relationships out the gate, including one of our investors. So we started really in New York where we had like strong relationships just from past lives, and we're operating through wholesale brokers. So you're sort of like large regional and even national outfits, but we still have to really engage with like each branch office. So as I mentioned, some of the more traditional approaches, we have dedicated underwriters handling regions of the country that are really focused on building that like boots on the ground relationships with our brokers, putting a name to the face to the name. um, and we're getting a lot of feedback. It's funny. So I have a really small team right now. It's myself and one other person, and I have another person joining shortly. Our underwriting team has grown quite substantially. So the feedback that's coming in is fast and furious. So
Wow.
we're able to deliver requirements to Inzu like, okay, we have this, question we should add to the platform, or we should be adding this coverage, or we should be enhancing this form, or we should add this question that triggers this, referral. So we're getting a lot of feedback from the market, which is great. And then we're growing geographically. So we launched in 20 states. Now we're in 24 states. So there's idiosyncrasies like within geographies as well. So we are getting a lot of good feedback from the market, and we're able to sort of really act quickly on that.
And for our non-US listeners, getting into 20 to 24 states is quite a big achievement because, at least from my understanding, each state has its own set of laws, which is quite challenging if you're looking to provide coverage across different states, right?
Yes, each state has certain forms that you have to attach to the policy, so there's logic around that. As a non-admitted carrier, and we could go into the weeds on what the differences are, but um, we don't have to actually file all the rates that we're going to charge. So it's if we were and when we do potentially offer an admitted product, it'll be even a more like larger project, but it's certainly not nothing. We have to like get pricing and all the forms logic all set up. It was, it took a few sprints to get that done.
I can imagine, yeah. And obviously, there's the ongoing maintenance as well. If there's like a
Mhm.
state change, you've got to be on top of it as well, right? So
Yeah, taxes that we have to charge, fees, and yeah.
yeah. And you mentioned obviously you started off with a small amount of underwriters on the team, and obviously that's grown.
Mhm.
Um, what does that kind of team look like today? And I guess that's one question, but the other one is it's really reassuring to know that because you've grown the number of underwriters on the team, they're obviously the more underwriters you have, the more they're working with brokers, the more feedback you can receive.
Mhm.
It's kind of a step by step to success, isn't it? Is getting more feedback and operating on that feedback. So yeah, I guess the question is, how many underwriters on the team today? What was it maybe like when you started? And yeah, what are maybe some of their main challenges?
Mhm. So I'll start with the challenges first. So we went to market with a hypothesis that, we had come from a small business, focused um, problem, right? Like we were seeing folks not be able to get insurance or getting really expensive insurance because of where they were located. And so we had this hypothesis based on our experience and also the data that we had received that if we showed up, we could get the portfolio of business that we want to write in these neighborhoods profitably. And that includes a mix of your accounting offices, dentist offices, flower shops, barber shops, restaurants, and some of the more riskier stuff. And you kind of need all that portfolio to fit together to make it work. So to write the really risky stuff, you also have to get like the more plain vanilla stuff, or you have to kind of, you know, get the rate that you need in each class. So we've been in market now for a year plus. We launched in August 2024, and it's actually been a little more challenging than we thought to get the really plain vanilla stuff. And we're getting a lot of submissions for the sort of stuff that you want a human to look at. So, and that kind of goes into Inslee. We configured a whole slew of referrals based on either the way questions are answered or even, exposures that are input. We have an opinion on what exposures should be. So we were just receiving a lot of flow. We've had about 10,000 submissions. But in the classes and the mix of things that we're seeing, we've learned that we are seeing more stuff that folks need to actually look at. So that's a big contributing factor to having our underwriting team grow. That team is tiered in terms of like their experience, how much authority they have. We're using Inslee to sort of navigate all those roles and permissions and who has authority to, accept a certain amount of TIV or a certain kind of class. So we're reaching somewhat of a steady state, but we're in the midst of our 2026 planning and coming up with like, what did we think we were going to write? What does it look like we're going to write? Which classes, which limit profiles? So we're in the midst of that right now, but we've had a lot of learnings over the past year.
Amazing. And yeah, I guess that's it's good progress, isn't it, to kind of have that kind of collective feedback from your underwriting team. And I guess it's a normal part of the process for them to go through kind of new challenges as you kind of progress and grow. So yeah, that's really reassuring to hear. And maybe this is going back a little bit of a step or two, but your product itself is kind of a commercial only product, which covers obviously businesses as a whole, but also commercial kind of properties as well, right?
Yes.
Maybe you can expand on that just a little bit, kind of where you are today in terms of your product offering, and maybe where you're planning on getting to, or any kind of future plans on the product point of view.
Yep. So we are offering a commercial package product, so property and GL. We are currently working on a feature to allow for multiple locations on a product, which we're adding on based on market feedback and some opportunistic, things that have been put in front of us. That's imminent. Meeting with the team tomorrow, so we're expecting that to launch within the next couple weeks. And it was a quick sort of turnaround because it's essentially the same product that we're issuing today. It'll just allow for multiple locations, but it does require a bunch of work around like mapping documents and pricing and all of that. But it's been going well. And I would say the biggest thing after that is sort of unbundling the product. So another sort of opportunities have presented themselves to have like a property only version of the product. So essentially a business owner, might have found their liability coverage elsewhere, or they have it wrapped up with other coverages like workers' comp, and they just really need insurance for the building. So that is coming shortly. That's sort of a fast follow. Actually, the work we did for multi-location feature, we did it in such a way knowing that property only was coming. So we're sort of killed two birds at one stone, trying to like kind of build for both at the same time and make all of our lives easier. So that's coming. Those are probably the biggest things out there right now.
So that's really clever, even though the most recent one isn't live yet. The way the product was built was with the view that that was going to be going live in the near future. So you kind of built growth into the product before it goes live, with the view for it to go live. That's really clever.
Yes, and one we're also working on. So right now we can insure property limits up to 5 million. So we are working on increasing that to 10. And similarly, from the tech side, it's really easy to just do that in the platform. It's not a new product. It's just really configuring some decline rules around like how much limit someone can put on, or how much authority one of our underwriters has to put on that limit. So similarly, like the way we've built out the product with Inslee, it's really easy to scale up and also kind of like duplicate the product and make some tweaks.
Great. And I think obviously we see a lot of cases where we'll get a customer on board who launches with one product line and they'll kind of expand. So yeah, I guess that makes complete sense. And now that we've touched on Inslee, maybe it's worthwhile going down kind of the technology route. So obviously with a product like yours, there is, and obviously the state laws, the state taxes, everything kind of considered, there's probably a lot of technical challenges within that whole kind of sphere, right? From kind of day one of your idea to kind of execution. So, I guess the question is, what was that journey like from a technology
Mhm.
perspective? You must have had a lot of problems, and you needed to search for a solution. So, yeah, great to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I had a lot of learnings from my past experience. So it was really great to come to District Cover with sort of a blank sheet of paper in terms of like, okay, we have the product that we want to sell, like the actual like policy we want to deliver to the customer. We have who's eligible, and we have how we want to price it. And then of course we can't ignore all the like billing, ledger, and like front end experience. So we started scoping like really just Google searches, like what's out there. There had been a lot of growth in, so I started at my prior company in 2017. So now fast forward, it was like 2022. So in those 5 years, there had been a lot of growth in the sort of like policy admin, insurance suite of products. So I have a file of probably 20 vendors that we spoke to. We had a whole like criteria matrix. And what I really loved about Inslee is that it solved so many of the features that we needed. So we didn't have to build our own front end, right? So the platform that our underwriters access and our admins access is the same platform that our producers are accessing. We're able to basically show and hide certain things and, navigate all the user roles and permissioning, but the source of truth that everyone's working with is the same. then if you go through the quote form, so it's managing all the, application, the questions, the conditions, the forms, attachment logic. Then you have pricing, document generation. So like still everything within Inslee, and then billing, like we're sending our invoices out through Inslee. So um, I've I've seen scenarios where systems are sort of duct taped together. So to kind of just come and have everything in one that was really like the main driver with our decision. Similarly, understanding that it's built on top of a ledger. I come from a financial operations background in past life, and we were always like the kind of forgotten people that like, oh, they'll figure it out. So yeah, having everything sort of wrapped in one package was, yeah, a big driver in this decision. And then we have access to the data. So we have access to a replica of the production database. We can pull out anything and everything that we need regarding quotes, policies, invoices, um, you name it. And so we have a strong sort of business intelligence operation that we're running to see how the business is going. So yeah.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, isn't there? I think, yeah. Where do we start? I think, yeah. The fact that you've had to use a single, or you've wanted to kind of find a single system that ticks so many boxes, rather than using multiple, which is a bit of a fragmented journey for yourself and for your obviously for the rest of your colleagues. I guess that's quite a promising thing for yourselves, right? It kind of alleviates some of the problems that you have, maybe managing data over certain kind of different systems. I guess that creates a whole barrage of additional complication, right? So yeah, I guess that makes sense. The ledger part as well, and then I think there's one thing you said at the start which stood out to me is the role based permissions, or the user based permissions.
Mhm.
Uh, so maybe you can kind of explain that in a little bit more detail, because from my understanding of that, there's obviously colleagues within district cover, but there's also additional users who perhaps you don't want them to have access to the full set of information, maybe a limited set of information.
Mhm.
That stood out to me. So maybe it'd be great if you could elaborate on that, and
Mhm.
what that's like for all the people involved.
Yeah, so we have the standard producer, I think we call it a broker user, so that they're only seeing quotes, policies, and then we're not showing a whole swath of data that we get either from our own data, from third party data enrichment. So we're able to sort of, the brokers have like a fairly clean quote form, basically risk related questions, and then some conditions, like if they answer a question this way, then they get this other question. But it's clean, and if something triggers a referral, they get a message and they can go on their way. We have three levels of underwriting. So they're all seeing all the information, but our sort of junior underwriters will see or can only accept TIV up to a certain threshold, or if the account is in a certain class of business that's like riskier, then they can't really accept that as like, here's a bindable quote. We are toying with another role. We're kind of trying to coin the name of it, but it almost would be like a super broker, power broker, something where we want to give some of our really like strategic, trusted partners even more access within the platform to do some underwriting decisions and or perform some underwriting decisions, and even manipulate pricing. So some brokers, they have a sense of where the market's landing, and instead of waiting for a district cover underwriter to say, oh hey, yeah, this looks good, let's go, they could actually perform that themselves, and then we would have checks on the back end to make sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to do. And I actually just submitted those requirements yesterday, and I think that's something we'll advance. We added an auditor role for like our carrier so that they can go in. Like we had our first audit, and it was a game changer for them to just be able to go in, pull policy documents, see sort of like the underwriting rationale behind decisions that were made. I think we have another role, and I'm spacing on it right now. But yeah, we've definitely dug into how we can use that to sort of keep everything in one place versus having to take it out of the system and navigate it that way.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it, when you have a different set of people who require a different set of data. But I think the promising thing is you have a. It sounded like you had a plan for that all along, and even for new and upcoming users, you've got a plan. I really like the term super broker. Might have to use that myself somewhere. But yeah, and I guess that's just a testament to the relationship that you've got with them, right? And then technology, in a way, is the supporting vehicle to make sure they get the access that they need, that you're comfortable with as well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, completely understand that. So, what does it look like, or what does your kind of technology journey or your journey with INSEE look like from an implementation or a support perspective? Obviously, implementation at times can probably be quite a laborious or a time intensive process, right? So yeah, maybe it would be good if you could share your thoughts on that initially, and the support you're receiving today. I know that you said that you catch up with the INSEE team every week, which is really promising. But yeah, great to get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, the implementation with Inslee was great. We even then were meeting every week, kind of going through what features are in, what can be tested. We had pretty robust sort of specs laid out of like, here's all the questions we want to ask, and here's what we want to happen based on how those questions are answered, etc. So we sort of delivered a file of like, here's everything, and then they did a great job sort of ticking through each one, and there's a lot of conditions around like, here's something we're going to ask everyone, here's something we're only going to ask restaurants, for example. So there's a whole slew of conditions in there. But I am a small team, so they did a great job of sort of interpreting the requirements, running through the initial round of like acceptance testing, and then sort of passing it off to me. We had a long runway, so we partnered with Inslee, but we had not yet landed our carrier. So we were kind of this chicken and the egg, okay, do we start building? Do we wait till we actually have a carrier? And then we said, well, we might as well start building so that we have something to show for what we're doing. And so, but then there was that, okay, now we have the carrier, and then they have, okay, layer in like these forms and layer in these questions. And so we had a nice convergence, when we were ready to go live. Like we were definitely ready on the Inslee side. We had a lot of time to sort of tick through all the test cases. So I had myself and some underwriters on the team, sort of, you name it, kind of scenario testing. But I honestly, like, now that once we went live, we were still sort of churning out, okay, let's tweak this, let's tweak that. And it's been over a year. And I don't know if we're like from the Inslee side, like the squeaky wheel or not. I don't have vision into that, but we definitely ask a lot of the team, and they deliver. So yeah, we meet every Monday. We go through the board of everything and kind of like align on priorities and what sprint things are going to land in, and having to move things around. And obviously we have the 3 environments, so the live and then the 2 lower environments. We're able to like really turn out testing, and it's not just features like configuring in the front end. We're also iterating on our pricing model, so we're having to like do a lot of versioning of the raters, and tweaking all sorts of things as we learn. We enter a new state, we start churning out quotes, we get feedback from brokers like, you're pretty high here, you're pretty low here. And so fortunately we're able to really quickly kind of turn that around with the team. So I'll just shoot the Inslee team an email like, I'm downloading the radar again, got to make a change. And they're quick to kind of connect that back to the lower environment. So we've made, I mean, we have a release every 2 weeks. So
Okay.
we've, and every 2 weeks we're deploying like pretty decent number of like feature improvements and even with bugs, everyone, you're going to have bugs. So um yeah, quick to sort of fix those. And yeah, it's been a great experience.
Nice. No, that's good to hear. And I guess that dynamic side is kind of what you need, right? When you're maybe iterating or growing or launching new things, you kind of need someone who can match your speed, right? From a delivery perspective. So that's really really promising. And yeah, and then I guess technology is evolving in so many ways. Now the buzzword of the year or the past few years has been AI. So
Mhm.
kind of what's your take on AI from a business perspective? Do you think there's any areas where it can help facilitate maybe some of your processes, or how do you kind of do you envisage it fitting into the business in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, definitely. There's probably two areas I see it fitting in, like, in the short term. One is on the front end. So, brokers are having to key in redundant data in many systems. Probably they're getting a quote from district cover, they're getting a quote from carrier A, carrier B. So I can see that being streamlined. We have pretty like standard forms in the US, called accord forms, um, that they're just kind of getting sent off to receive multiple quotes. So I could see a world where AI can scrape the pertinent data that's needed to at least give a price indication, right? So on the property side, it's things like exposure, construction type. I could see AI sort of filling in the blanks, and then a broker kind of who knows the actual account, like underwriting qualities, would just go in and answer like the eligibility questions. So on the front end, I definitely see a use case for AI there. On the back end, we get a lot of data about the actual properties. So we're inspecting a lot of these businesses. If they're, certain classes of business, certain exposures, an actual human is going out and inspecting the property and then running us a report. And we're reading those reports, we're pulling out any pertinent information or updating the policy or the renewal. If, they said it was, you know, fire resistant building and it's actually made of wood. Um, so I could see a use case where you use AI to sort of like extract that data in a structured way. Same with loss runs, folks are getting copies of loss runs. We're not going to use that data to sort of train any models or anything, but it's more about just getting it in like a structured format versus a PDF document. So, and I know Inslee's, we're testing a feature with Inslee on how we can sort of use AI to read some of those submissions and applications. So I'm excited to see that advance.
Nice, definitely. And I think that's the key, right? If there's any area where we can kind of support in general, whether it's speeding things along or processing or triaging information faster, then that's an area that we've actually been looking into for the last 12 months with FormFlow. So yeah, it'd be great to see where that conversation goes. Okay, great. And then um, currently, you don't have claims sat on the Inslee platform. Is there any plans to kind of do that moving forwards, or kind of what's your take on the claims process at the moment?
Yeah, so today our carrier has partnered with a third party claims administrator. So we are getting the claims data into our data warehouse and sort of marrying it up there. I can see a world where we have it actually within Inslee so that come renewal and renewal of renewal, you kind of know if the expiring policy had claims activity. So, yeah, that's something we have on the roadmap.
Nice, good stuff. And then maybe you are willing to share maybe a little bit of information about kind of your future plans for district cover, if there's anything else that's on the horizon, maybe a message you want to share to your partners and your super brokers.
Um, I feel like I probably shared everything we're willing to share at the moment. We did just close a fundraise, so we're excited about
Oh,
that.
congratulations.
Yeah, so we closed the end of right before Labor Day. We closed a Series A, so that's exciting, and that's kind of giving us the opportunity to reflect and sort of think through, you know, we're continuing to scale the current product, we're unbundling the package,
Yeah.
we're increasing limits, adding features, but I guess sort of as we think longer term, how can we really serve cities in the US, like large metropolitan areas, and like where are they having the most challenge in getting capacity. So whether that's, higher limits or more challenging risks that they're having trouble finding a home for. One area, for example, could be if you walk down a city street, you see like storefronts, and then on the top you have some apartments. That's always challenging when you have residential exposure. So we're starting to think through how could we, have edge in underwriting sort of mixed use opportunities. Um, yeah.
Amazing. Good stuff. Well, thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate your time sharing your story, but also District Cover's story as well. Congratulations again on your fundraising. That's amazing news. So wish you all the best in the coming months and years to come. And yeah, your to our listeners, you're able to check out District Cover on districtcover.com. You can also find them on LinkedIn as well. Brianna is also on LinkedIn. If you did want to drop her a message, but what I'll do is I will leave all of the details below in the description. And again, Brianna, thank you very much. It's been great having you on.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks.